Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Bolduc, and my guest today is Bridget Shirvell. And Bridget is talking to us about environmental parenting, which is something that we haven't talked about a lot. So I'm really curious to hear, what you've learned, Bridget. And so one of the things, you just published a book called Parenting in a Climate Crisis, which is a
Mhm.
handbook for turning fear into action. See, I told you I would do that.
Yeah, good job. We got it.
And we just talked about that, so it's just in and out of my head, which is crazy. But such an important thing. I mean, we were talking about a couple of past episodes that I've done, but I just love. I'm so. I love the idea of teaching the next generation, and it's so important because some of us are kind of stuck in our ways, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
we definitely need to do better, but also we need to really focus on the kids. So thank you so much for being here. I'm thrilled to learn about, the book and everything that you have been putting together.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad we could make this work. Uh, I can give you a little bit of background, I guess, in the book to start with.
Please.
So, Parenting a Climate Crisis came out in February, so it's still pretty new. I spent almost 4 years researching and writing the book. I will say the writing did not take me that much time, but the researching took a lot of time. And one of the things that was really important to me when I was doing the book was that I wanted to include a lot of voices of other parents, but parents who are doing something in like climate action. So there's, information from climatologists, but it's not just about what's happening to the planet. It's also like the conversations that they have with their own kids, how they talk about the climate crisis, what they eat, the skills that they think that their kids are going to need in the future. And so that was a really important part to be able to put into the book.
Yeah, for sure. So, do you want to get into some of that?
Sure. So, the book I will say is broken up into kind of four different parts. And the first part I will say talks a lot about sort of the nitty-gritty, right, of how you talk to kids about the climate crisis, how you deal with your feelings about the climate crisis, both your own and how you help your kids deal with theirs, especially as they become like older and start to understand more what's going on. And then the second part of the book is really talking about kind of how we cultivate a love of nature. So it talks a lot about like how you can use like your household pet, how that can be a great like first step if you have a dog or a cat. And then it talks about easy ways to spend time out in nature and why that's so important and kind of how you can help, how as parents or caregivers we can help foster curiosity and why that is an important climate skill. And then from that, I kind of go into kind of what both parents and kids can do in their own lives to sort of live more environmental friendly lives, right? So there's a whole chapter on food, there's a chapter on problem solving, a chapter on consumerism and kind of tips for like reducing what you buy and waste, which can be so tricky. And then the final chapter, or the final section, I should say, takes kind of a broader look. So it talks about activism and community building and kind of how we get towards like systematic change.
Ooh, I love that. I love
Um,
that. And one of the things that there was actually another episode that we sort of focused on kids is the My Mindful Kitchen with Janet Irizar.
okay.
And it's about food waste and teaching kids and working together as a family on food waste. But
Yeah,
I
I think
love that.
that's that's great. I think that for so many people, food is such like an easy way into environmental issues and climate issues, right? Because we all have to eat, but also because like you can see what's happening. You can see how much food you're wasting, or you can, have herbs growing on the windowsill, or if you have a yard, you can teach kids about like, oh, like this is how we grow a potato, and that potato you can turn into French fries or potato chips. Like it's something that they can really see the whole process of.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, but I love the idea that you broke it up the way that you did. And the I'm curious about the chapter one, like the first section about how to talk to kids and how to bring it up. because what I've got, like I told you I don't have kids, and everyone knows I don't have kids, but we were talking about this also, that we as adults we tend to like, this is just how things are, and oh my gosh, the world is going down the toilet so fast, but it's not a great way to bring kids into that. Like, we need
Right.
to embrace what they have, because what they have is so special.
Yeah, and I think that, you can start from, so I have a 6-year-old, so we're still kind of like she's aware of the broad like feelings of the climate crisis and the broad kind of like terms, but she doesn't really understand like the nitty-gritty. And I think with younger kids, really what you're doing is kind of setting the foundation for what you're going to talk about later. And it's also just like overall being respectful of your environment, right? So just like you would teach your kid to turn off a light or like close the refrigerator door after they've used it, like you think about, oh, when we're outside, we pick up our things or we don't like leave trash. It's kind of like that starting to set the idea of like how we take care of the planet, and all of that's going to like filter into like what's happening to it as kids get older.
Ooh, such a good point, actually. I mean, so a lot of it is like teach by example, but also explain why we do stuff like that.
Right.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And that was really important to me in the book because, I mean, whether or not you have kids, we're all so busy, right? It's can be so hard to slow down. And so I really wanted the things that I was talking about in the book to be things that you can do in your kind of like everyday life, things that you're doing anyways. You're just kind of like having a conversation or reframing what you're doing.
Hmm, great. Oh, that's so good. Um, yeah. So, and then chapter two, or the second, are they chapters, or are they
They're
just?
chapters, yeah. So the second chapter is really about like feelings. And this I felt like was kind of a hard chapter because I think as adults, a lot of us have a lot of really big feelings about the climate crisis. And it's kind of like, okay, how do you deal with those feelings and not also pass them on to your kids, but also help your kids deal with their own feelings? And some of that, especially, with older kids, again, like I have a 6-year-old, so this isn't personal experience, but some of the people I like talked to for the book talked about how like their teenagers are angry, right? Like they're angry that this is the world that they're living in and that they have like every right to be angry, and kind of like how you help them deal with those emotions.
Right. Ooh, yes. Um, yeah, we definitely do not want to pass down the anxiety that we're all feeling and the pressure. Yeah, for sure. But we want to let them, we we want to embrace what they have and invite them into the conversation, so that, they can see, but not in a scary, like,
Right. And I think it's like one of the things I tried to stress in the book, and I think is important when you're talking to kids about this, is that there are, like, it is scary, but there are so many people that are working on really cool solutions to different parts of the problem. And I think there's a lot of like hope and inspiration to be found there. And I will say there are, a couple of kids that I spoke to for the book that like show up in the book. So there's like a 13-year-old who started a river cleanup in his state. And so, I mean, it was also kind of cool over the course of me like researching and writing this book. Like I kind of got to see him grow up from afar as I was like checking in to see how he was like doing on different things. But so I think that is nice too, because parents can like pick up these examples of say, oh, like this is something that Cash saw as a problem, and this is what he did, and he was only 12 when he started doing it. Like there, like what is something that you would like to
right,
try to do?
right. Or, do you and your friends want to do something like it,
Right.
make it fun?
Yeah.
Like beach cleanup or something like that. Yeah.
Right. It can be like an activity you did. Yeah, or there were, kids I spoke to in the book who like actually got their schools to invest in solar panels. And I thought that was really cool and just like a really cool story that, I mean, it was a ton of work, but the book kind of talks through like how they were able to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh my gosh. So good. I mean, how did you find out how they did that? Like, was it petition or like,
Yeah, so What has normally happened is like you have to do a lot of research, right? But it's all information that you can normally request from your school district of like what are you currently spending on energy costs? Like what are the options? Some schools are better suited for solar than others, obviously. And then what they really did is they came up with a proposal, took it to their Board of Education. They also tried to get a lot of community support. So they went around to local businesses, other like taxpayers in the community just to kind of like have a sense of the support that it was. And it was a lot of like back and forth. I think that one of the students who I spoke to for the book, she started it when she was in high school and they ended up not getting the panels installed until she was already at college. And she was like, I really wasn't expecting for it to take that long, but she was also grateful that like they didn't just shoot them down. They just like
Yes.
went back and forth and requested more information.
Right. Well, even
And
from college, like just to know that that sparked
yeah.
something that it didn't go away. That's really encouraging. Like I know where I'm from, I don't know that that would pass. The adults are so like, no, we need that money for whatever. I don't.
Yeah, and it is so interesting because lots of times, like I think there's obviously like the upfront cost, but lots of times schools do save money over the long term. And then there's also a lot of schools that have been able to incorporate energy usage some way into their like school curriculum. So they can teach kids a little bit about like how it's working. They can monitor things.
Oh, heck yeah.
Alaska, interestingly enough, has done a lot of this with wind turbines, because that's in some hydropower, that's more like solar panels not going to work for them really, but and they have really done it from a point of view of like, oh, energy is super expensive for us. We need to educate people on why that is. And that has seemed to have broken down some of like what you would have assumed would have been political resistance in a state that we consider more red.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I'm sure that there are like big um like tax credits if a school,
Right.
I know that's a, it's a big motivator for a lot of people. Like, you spend this much now, but then you literally get this huge break. I would imagine schools get something like that and bigger than a house.
Yeah, and there's a lot of organizations that will help. So that was kind of like included in the book.
That's
Like
a
the end
lot
of the
for
book is kind of
kids.
like additional like resources that you could kind of look into for your own, like if that's something that you wanted to do. But it doesn't even have to be like on that level. It could be
Sure.
something as simple as like composting, right? Like a lot of schools have the ability to compost, but don't. Or it's, seeing if you can get your school to do like a meatless Monday. Yeah,
Ooh,
there's a lot of
yeah. I
things.
mean, I imagine there's a ton of food waste at schools.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
compost.
I would think so. Although I am curious because I mean, I am lucky to live in a town where we have curbside composting, which is great, but they don't have it at the school or at like restaurants. It's like strictly residential. But my daughter brings her food home with her, which I'm
Oh
like,
my
okay,
gosh. Good
that's great. You get to like
job.
put it here, but also like now I like have a lunchbox full of trash at the end of the day.
Right. I guess that's what we have dishwashers for
Right.
and compost.
Yeah.
But that's great that she just refuses to throw it away, though.
Yeah.
You did a good job, Mom.
Well, I think that one of the things that, like, I didn't grow up composting, and composting is still kind of tricky for me. So it was really important for me to try to do it from her as early as possible because then it's just like second nature.
Right. It's just a natural, it's like, walking or putting your shoes on.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, I love that. That's so great. And I like the idea of, sort of making it a game or,
Oh,
having
yeah.
it fun and not like, oh,
Right.
I gotta go
Yeah.
eat something
Yeah.
good.
I think composting is really cool for kids. I mean, we have the curbside composting now, so like we don't do it in our backyard, but like if you do it in your backyard, even like worms are really interesting, right? So if you do like the worm composting or what we used to do before our town had curbside composting is that I would have like two compost piles and one would kind of be like our experiment pile, right? Because you get sometimes you get things in the mail that say they're compostable and you're like, are you really? Like, let's see what happens. Which is why it's nice because then that like experiment pile we used to just use to grow like flowers because I didn't really want it to be something that we were eating just because I wasn't 100% sure of what was happening with it. But yeah, so there's a lot of cool ways to do it.
Yeah. I mean, worm composting is really fun for kids. I mean,
Yeah.
especially to see like how different, like when you put chunks of things in and then you get like this gorgeous soil, like that's really exciting. Okay, so we talked about chapters 1 and 2. Did we talk about
We
chapter
did.
3?
Um, Not really. So chapter 3 is really goes into like nature and spending time outside, which there's also just there's so much science around the health benefits, both physically but also emotionally. So I kind of really wanted to go into that so people would understand why like we want kids to fall in love with nature because that's kind of how we build environmental stewards, but also it's really good for them.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, and I mean, you are, I can tell you're younger than I am. Like even a generation a little bit older than me, people are like, oh, our parents kicked us out first thing in the morning and didn't expect us back until it was dark, like that type of thing. But we grew up
Right.
with, video games and stuff like that. And you had computers.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but so
Um,
it's great that it's such an important topic for you to focus on.
Yeah, and one of the things I found in my research there was that like it doesn't have to be a ton of time. Like you can really like 5, 10 minutes of kind of unstructured outdoor time a day is really all you need to kind of have those benefits. And so throughout the book, I also like tried to give ideas for people of how they could do that, whether they have like a backyard or whether they're living in a like city. And so there's also different examples from different moms, right? Like I have a New York City mom who homeschools her kids. So she's living in a very different environment than I am. So it was important to me that she got to kind of give some like tips of how she gets her kids outside.
Hmm. Okay. I Yeah, I mean it's just so important and to find a way to fit it into your life so that you're also teaching the importance of that. Yeah, I'm down with that. Um, I'm just writing stuff down.
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's fine.
learning. Okay, and so nature is getting outside in nature, man. Like, do we need to explain that? I mean, for the podcast, but I think that it's just it's clearly just really important. And I even if you live in a city, container gardening is really great.
Right.
To grow food is also it's a super exciting thing for someone young to get to understand how important nature is. And
Yeah.
yeah, oh boy.
And I think, that I think I have found has been one of maybe the most unexpected but joyful parts for me of being a parent of like this ability that especially when your kids are really little, you kind of get to fall in love with nature again yourself because they notice everything. So if you like have the ability to slow down and pay attention to what they're noticing outside, I think as adults, it's a really cool thing because you almost get to be a kid again. Like I can remember when I was little, I used to spend summers with my grandmother, and she would always want us to take a walk anytime it rained. And I had kind of like forgotten about that until I had my own child and she like wanted to jump in puddles all the time. And I was like, oh yeah, this is great. This is really cool. Like, no, you can't do it all the time, especially when you're like late for something. But yeah.
But definitely let's do that. Oh gosh, that's really fun. And that's such an important it's an important thing for us as adults, to remember those times and to feel that again because like we discussed, like we just get so bogged down with lifey adult things and we
Right.
forget fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, and then chapter 4 is activism, right?
Oh no, so chapter 4 actually is about animals.
Oh,
So it kind of like plays into this like the whole idea of falling in love with the world around us.
oh,
And so I focused, like, we've always had dogs, so I focused a lot on like how dogs can help kids like fall in love with the world around them. But like the same applies if you have any sort of pet or you have a friend who has a pet or really just like getting outside again in nature and seeing the animals around you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, my cats are tied outside right now, actually. But yes, I mean, especially when you have a really sniffy dog, that everything is exciting to.
Right.
Oh,
And it kind of plays into the whole idea, right, of how we like promote nurturing and the idea of protecting the environment, right? Like if you have a household pet, like kids learn from a very young age, like how they take care of that pet and how like that pet is part of the family. So that is a very like an important kind of climate skill.
yes, for sure. And that, having a pet it sort of prepares them for that a little bit. Like,
Right.
they're used to taking care of something, someone. And then, we do the same thing for outside.
Right. And it's interesting because there's a lot of like research. There's a psychologist I talked to for the book who kind of talked a little bit about how there's this gender divide, right? Where lots of times we see females more as caretakers, and that actually starts really young. Like kids as young as 6 start to see that divide. But when you bring in a pet, they don't see it as like, oh, it's the mommy's job to take care of the pet. They do see it differently, like it's everyone's job. So
Oh,
that's kind of really fascinating.
I had no idea, but I guess that makes sense. Okay. And I mean, another fun thing about, I mean, not necessarily pets, but birding is like so fun. It's so
Right. Like if you, yeah, if you don't have pets, but you have a kid who's super into birds, like that's a great thing to like get outside and do too.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I've got a mockingbird that talks to me all day long whenever I just love it. Because I do not have one in Maine. Okay. And so the activism part is chapter 5? Is it an actual
No,
chapter?
so the activism is actually at the end
Okay.
of the book. So
And
then
what
we
are
go
we doing with
into
all this information we just learned?
so then we go into curiosity. And we were talking a little bit about this before we started, right? Like kids are kind of naturally curious, and the UN several years ago said that they thought curiosity was a secret weapon for climate resilience. And that was really interesting to me. And I was kind of like, okay, like why is that? And is curiosity something that can be taught? And it's not really something that can be taught, but it is something that we can help foster as adults, both in ourselves and in kids.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, we talked about that. Yeah, we definitely talked about that. Um, and I think I think you're right. I mean, I think that's going to save us because we're so set in, this is going to work or this isn't going to work. And like but then we're not really doing a lot. So we need the curiosity part
Yeah.
out
And
of.
it's also, such a big part of just community building too, which is like a chapter later on in the book. So everything kind of builds on each other, but curiosity kind of really allows you to like take a step back and say, well, why do you believe like what you believe? And instead of like we tend to be so set in our ways as we get older.
So true. My goodness. Yes. Um, yeah. I mean, curiosity for sure. That's really, I'm lacking some of that, and I, I think, and having kids around could probably also spark that in ourselves, like just like, but what if, what about this, or why do we do this? And you're like, well, I don't know, but let's look into that. And
Right. Yeah. I mean, kids ask so many questions, and how we react to those questions is kind of like how we can help like nurture their curiosity and our own. And again, it's all like a time thing. Like you're not always going to have the ability to do it, but like when you can have the ability to be like, oh, well, what is a sea lion's favorite color? Like that is a question my daughter asked one day. And I was like, well, I don't know. And then we found out that they don't like see all colors, but these are the colors that they do see.
Okay. What colors do they see?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing.
I mean, I figure red is one for a lot of animals
I
because it's
think
like so in your
so,
face.
yeah.
I do not know, but that's a really fun question. Okay, and next.
So the next kind of section, there's three chapters, and that's really goes into what individuals can do in their like individual lives. So that's where you get to the chapter about food, right? And then also consumerism and kind of problem solving. And if you think about that, all of those are kind of like tied together, right? Like you have to be able to problem solve if there's something that you really want, but you're trying to reduce what you buy.
Mhm.
And same with like food waste or yeah.
Right. Okay. And did you learn anything really noteworthy in that, like in your research?
Think so. The consumerism chapter was really kind of fascinating to me. I talked to this man named Tom Bailey who is based in the UK, and he had done a lot of he was for a long time he had worked kind of on climate solutions towards renewable energies, and then he was part of a team that did some research that was really eye-opening for him, and it basically found that no matter what like the large scale solutions were, it wasn't going to be enough to avert the worst of the climate crisis unless we drastically reduced what we were buying, basically. Um, and I think that lots of times, especially in the past, like maybe 5 years or so, there's been this push in environmental circles between individual action and systematic action. And so I have always kind of thought that the two influence each other and it's not either or. We needed to be doing both. And this kind of research around that was really kind of showed that because it basically found that people can reduce carbon emissions by probably almost a third if they make kind of six shifts in their day-to-day lives. And some of that is like eating a plant-based diet, but it's also buying significantly less clothing. Like I think here in the US, on average, people buy 53 pieces of clothing each year, which is crazy. But this was finding more that like you should be buying used or you should be buying like four pieces of clothing, which like as a parent, I kind of look at it and I'm like, oh, are you crazy? I have to buy more than four pieces of clothing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean,
but
as
they
that
are,
child is growing for sure, but
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but they
I
are
thought
kind
we
of
already
like
have our wardrobe.
your
We just
goals.
maybe add a piece or
Yes.
two, or yeah,
Yeah, it definitely really made me think about like, oh, like where can like how else can I get this like item that I need to think about like asking friends for something first, like friends who have older kids if they have something that my kid can use.
right.
So it
Or like
definitely shifted what I do in my
yeah,
own life.
yeah, or like a Facebook buy nothing group or something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that, and one of the things that I've learned doing, having these conversations, I know with Janet and My Mindful Kitchen, uh, she had said, and this, it kind of blew my mind a little bit because she had said, if we work on our food waste at home, like that's bigger than, um, all the businesses. There's just so many people, but
Right.
I always figured that it was like mass amounts of waste with like grocery stores and restaurants and stuff like that, and not thinking about the fact that every home we're wasting, I think sometimes like a pound of food a day or
Right.
at least a pound of food a week, something like that. Like it just all adds up. And what, like you were saying, it takes all kinds. And so we can't say, well, these businesses have to do it and I don't have to do it because we all need to be part of
Yeah.
it. You know,
Um,
if we're creating food waste or waste at all, like we need to take some responsibility for that and not just say the businesses make it bigger.
yeah. And it goes right back into like, a lot of the things that you do to be more like sustainable or environmentally friendly, or like they're also better for you in so many ways, right? If you're wasting less food, you're also wasting less money. And so That's a huge thing. There is like, so in the food chapter, there is a woman I spoke to who has a like zero waste shopping guidebook that's out. And so one of the things that she thought was a really useful activity and is so fun with kids is to kind of do like a food waste audit, right? So like on a nice day, if you can, like spread out, basically take your kitchen trash and spread it out outside and see, like, okay, what are we actually wasting and like what could we waste less of? Like maybe it's something simple, like you always buy yogurt containers in a smaller, can you buy it in a bigger container so you're wasting less? Or like if you're always throwing out bananas, maybe you shouldn't be buying as many bananas, right? Like things like that. But then you can also take that same once your kids have that kind of grounded background, and I think food is an easy way to do it, you can take it into the like consumer level of like, what else are we like throwing out that we could find a new like home for first?
Right. I mean, and on the food waste level too, like like we were talking earlier about sort of gamifying
Hmm.
stuff like, oh, this is starting to get a little bit soft. Like what could we do with this so that we're not
Right,
actually wasting it? Like these bananas are starting to get brown. We could throw them in the trash or we could compost them, but would anyone want to make banana bread? And we could do that or
right.
And I know that you can use bananas instead of like oil in.
Yeah, lots of times I just like will like peel them and freeze them if they're getting a little too ripe because you can also just like eventually like blend them up into kind of like a banana ice cream or something. Yeah. So we try to do something here in my house where like once a week we have like find what you can in the fridge for dinner like night and it's just like our way to use up whatever like we have.
Yeah. I saw a reel on Instagram this past week, and I don't remember who it was, but somebody was just like, all of your veggie scraps, instead of composting them or, throwing them away or whatever, but like if you put all those vegetable scraps together and then you added a little bit of like flour and stuff, you could actually make a really good but veggie burger. And I'm like, oh
Oh,
shoot,
okay.
that's so smart.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I keep meaning to like try to make homemade veggie burgers. I never have, but that's
Yeah.
like a good way to think about doing it. I have a friend also who keeps like a bag of kind of veggie scraps in her freezer and then she'll eventually just make like stock with it.
Yeah. That's another really good one. Just to save it from, yeah,
Yeah,
you're getting a second use out of it. Like it's literally
right.
life. And I love that. But and the same and I mean I have not taken part in a CSA, like where a CSA, community supported
The community,
agriculture.
yeah,
Um, if they do like a box, like a mystery box. But I have tried different things and just for myself, I'm like, it's sort of like a game. Like, how can I use this? I'm
right,
not going to waste it because I paid for it. But how, look up recipes, like how many different ways can I use this and what's the most realistic for me?
right. Yeah, I mean, there are so many different recipes, and it's just like what else you can do with things. Yeah,
Right. And then I've had a couple of guests that will do like with clothes as they get older, like save um one good pair of jeans or something like that, and you can cut them up and use them for patches, that type of thing. So
okay,
like,
yeah,
giving your clothes a second life also, or making a
right.
quilt or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I was better at sewing than I am. Like that is a skill, but I have had like some of my daughter's clothes made into like a quilt. Like I had somebody else do it. But
Oh.
that was really great. And I mean, you can also like lots of times I just use things as like rags, right? Like as dish rags or something. Yeah.
But I love that idea of just trying to waste less, no matter what it is, and and including them in,
Right.
in the conversation. So important because they're going to be on their own in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like it's interesting like here where I live in Connecticut, we have this our trash is paid for by these like yellow bags we have to buy. And so all of our trash has to be in that bag. And so that like really makes you think about what you're throwing away because our recycling and our food compost is like free. So I'm always kind of like, all right, how long can we go before we have to like put out that bag?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was like that for me in Maine too. We did the same thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, it totally does. I mean, when you have to pay for your trash, you're paying attention to what goes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're all like paying for it, but it's definitely something different between like paying for the bag. My dog is saying hello. Versus like when it's just coming out of your taxes, like you think about it differently.
Yeah, I mean, it's your you know, you have all the control over that
Right.
for sure. Okay, and next.
And so then the next chapter really kind of goes into, or the next section I will say is there's two chapters kind of goes into like what we think about as like systematic change. So there's like a chapter on community building, and then there's a chapter on like activism.
Okay, and
And so it's interesting. So this book kind of originated from an article I wrote for Good Housekeeping magazine back in 2019. And when I had originally pitched the article, I was thinking about, can I like climate proof my child? Like, what does that mean? Like, what skills is she going to need? And when I started the research for that article, I was really focused on kind of like survivalist skills, right? Like, is she going to need to know how to sew? Is she going to need to grow her own food, to can, all of those things? And what I found is that, all of those things are important, especially if your kid is interested in them, but kind of what is more important is the skills that we kind of think of as like softer skills. So it really is that like emotional intelligence of like how you build community, how you problem solve, the curiosity component, like flexible thinking.
that's so important for sure. And it's not definitely not something that you learn in school.
No, no.
Uh, I am a fan of community building, that's for sure. And I think that especially when you're trying to make a difference, the more people you can gather, the better. And that's it's everything.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good one. I mean, teaching
Yeah.
kids how to do that, that's so important. Gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I mean it all kind of plays into each other, right? Because then like you go into activism, like if you have a community that like activism is a little like easier to do.
Right, for sure. Okay. And I know that you said that you talked about a couple of kids that were doing stuff, or a bunch of kids that were doing the solar panel project and the kid that was doing
The river cleanup, the water
river cleanup.
cleanup, yeah.
That's right. And so what else did you get from the activism section?
So one of the things I got from the activism section was just kind of like how we think about it, right? Like I think lots of times when we think of activism, we think about protests. And depending on your personality, that might not be something that, like, I'm not a big protest person. So it was kind of thinking about like the different ways that like activism can take hold. Like maybe it's, that river cleanup, or there was a teenager I spoke to who did a lot of kind of community education in her town. So she would have like classes at her different libraries on things like, oh, like how you can reduce your waste, or like
Right.
why are the ticks so bad this year and what you can do about them. And that is a climate issue in a lot of ways. And so that chapter kind of focuses a lot on like all the different things that people can do.
We're writing a book.
And yeah. And one of the things that I found that I didn't really love when I was doing the research for the book, but seems like it has come up again more recently, is just that one of the best things we can do as individuals is really talk about the climate crisis with other people and how we're feeling about it. So not just like kids, but also like your friends or your neighbors. Just because the majority of Americans do want climate action, and that's true, like the worldwide too. Like worldwide, the majority of people want climate action, but most people aren't talking about it. And so they think that other people don't feel the same way as they do. And so the more that we can kind of make it part of the mainstream conversation, the better.
Or they don't quite know what to do or how to start. And so if you're talking
Right.
together, then that curiosity and that community makes it easier for sure. And like you said, they go together.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like, right. Like, obviously, nobody wants to be like the Debbie Downer at the party. But like, it can very much be like, oh, like, what are you making for dinner like this week, right? Like I feel like everybody always struggles with the like what's for dinner question, and it can be something like we're trying to eat like less meat and this is why, or we're trying to eat more like organic food and this is why, or like hey, I just like switched my energy provider for to somebody who's doing renewable energy. In some states you can do that, not all, but in some you can. So it can very much be these like every part of your everyday conversations.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Um, and so that's that's amazing. I mean, so this is this something that someone would this is not something that someone would read to their kids. It's something that it's sort of like like you said, it's a handbook.
It's kind of a handbook for like parents. And I wouldn't say it's like it's not necessarily like it's specific from parent to parents because that's my experience, but like my book, for instance, is say for sale at the zero waste coffee shop in my town, and he keeps kind of selling it to people that are not necessarily parents because he's like, there's a lot of great tips in there, even if you don't like have kids.
Sure.
And I will say the book is like, while everything in the book kind of builds on each other, it is also designed that, you know, if food is what you're really interested in or like reducing consumerism, like you can pick up and start from those chapters and then go on to something else.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's not necessarily chronological. It's just
Right.
what's applicable at the moment, for sure. Okay. And let's see. So, one of the things that I had gotten from your guest form at least was that you were saying, preparing kids for the future, which is so honorable. I mean, there's just like survival, and then there's like, preparing them to be able to function in this world and to, hold their own, really.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of kind of the driving motivation for me behind writing the book in a lot of ways is that like I can't control the future, right? None of us can. And I certainly can't make like governments or businesses act, but I can like control the skills that I try to teach my child and kind of what our values around different things are.
Awesome. Oh gosh. That's so good. And I think it's so, I mean, I don't think I was really prepared for the future. And we did grow up recycling, but really not a lot otherwise. And so I think it's really important to at least have that option or, for kids to I think it's important for us to teach kids for sure so that they can
Right.
prepare because we
And I,
know what it's going to be in the future.
yeah. And I think a lot of it is focused on like them being able to make their own decisions, right? Like in my food chapter, there's a woman who's like, well, I have one kid who's decided to be a vegetarian and one kid who hasn't, and that's fine. They understand the reasons and things behind everything. And I think like that's important too, right? Like my daughter really does not like any of the alternative milks, like oat or almond or like whatever. I normally like prefer oat milk from an environmental standpoint. But she has made the decision that like she really wants dairy milk and like that's okay. We're all going to make different decisions. And so I wanted like that is an important part I think of raising kids for the future too is like making sure that they're informed but can also make their own choices.
Yes, so important. Okay. I mean, I love this conversation. I mean, it makes so much sense and I wish that there was more of that for sure. When I was growing up, but also now we just need more people talking about it.
Definitely.
Because we have a whole bunch of kids that are going to be going out into the world before too long. I mean, every day there's
Yeah.
more.
Right.
And they're the next generation. They're going to be taking this on. So they've got to figure out how to, I mean, we have to help them figure out
Right.
how to do the best that they can with it, with what we're leaving them.
Hmm.
And they're going to be taking care of us. So we got to be them and make sure that they respect that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Bridget, when I say the word sustainability, what does that mean to you? I have a feeling that you have thoughts on that.
I have a lot of thoughts on that. It's that word has meant a lot of different things to me over, say, the past like 15 years. When I first started as a writer, I did a lot of like food writing and I was very focused on food sustainability. And so for me, then sustainability meant like, well, what's good for the person buying the food, but also what's good for the planet and what's good for the people who are growing it. And then I think that, as my like writing developed and I started focusing on issues beyond just food, it kind of took on more of a like whole life feeling. And then I definitely went through a phase where I was very against the word sustainability. And I was like, there's so much greenwashing and there's nobody knows what it means. And I was very, very anti that word. I think most recently, I will say for me, sustainability now still has that like initial like what is good for me, what's good for the planet, what's for the good for the other people. But it also is very much about slowing down right now. I like slowing down to appreciate the things around me, to appreciate the people in my life, and then kind of making very intentional decisions about what we do and what we need.
Ooh, that's so good. That's so good. And I mean, I had a couple of guests on the podcast who, when I asked them that same question, they're like, "That's not good enough. Sustainability is not good enough." Because that's sustaining where we are right now, which is
Right,
great. Um, and I understand that. It's just it's a word, it's kind of an all-encompassing and it can mean so many
hmm,
things. And so it's like it's a very generic word that means something different to everyone. And ooh, I had a thought. Um, oh, I'm gonna have to edit this.
no, I love that you asked that question because you're right. Like sustainability does mean so many things to so many different people.
Yeah. But I think that I think that so one of the other things is that, the word sustainability, like you were saying, but like if products have the word sustainable on them, it brings the price up so much. And I think that's what you
Hmm.
were getting to with the greenwashing. And I totally get that and I agree with that. And that's kind of why I'm doing the podcast. Like there are so many things that say sustainable. And if we want to be part of the solution, we want to buy things that say sustainable, but we can't all afford that.
Right,
And so this is to encourage people to get creative about that because there are so many ways that we can be part of the solution. And it doesn't have to be spending all of our money on things that we can't really afford. I mean, we can be like your friend, making, saving vegetable scraps to make broth
right,
or, making our own veggie burgers or, or writing a book and asking the school to put solar panels on. Like there are just so many ways that we're
right,
part of that. And I'm not going to say it doesn't require money, but it doesn't require us to be poor, like spend all of our money.
right. And I also think it's, important to know, and I would say this for anybody, but really for parents that like what you're doing that is sustainable or not sustainable is going to change over the course of your life and the places that you are in, right? Like when my daughter was really little, my sister lived in Texas and I wanted my daughter to have a relationship with her. So we got on a plane and like flew to Texas and like that was an environmental cost. But I also knew that like eventually we could be at a point where like either one of us would move closer or like she would be old enough that we could get in the car and like spend a longer time driving to see her and that would be like more sustainable. So I think it is like important to just sometimes I think it's very easy to like beat yourself up about the choices that you like make, but sometimes like just the fact that you're thinking about what is the best,
Right.
most sustainable one, even if it isn't something that you can do, is a good step.
Right. It's for me, it's such a mindfulness thing. Like I'm going to get on a plane and I know that's not the best thing, but it also is I have to be mindful of my time.
Hmm.
There are some things that, you can't go across the sea really easily.
Right.
Like, or, there's just like we only get so much time off and stuff like that. Like
Right,
you just have to
exactly.
make the best of it. And
Yeah.
planes are a big one. I'm also a big fan of cruising and I haven't done it in a long time, but I know
Mm.
that's also bad. But there's also like we have to we have to feel good also.
Right. Yeah. And I think
Fun
that
things
was
to
like,
do. And I'm not to say that sustainable things are not fun, but there are things that we need to really let go of the pressure and just
right.
know what we're doing.
Yeah, you can't beat yourself up about them. Yeah, and I think that's, in the chapter that I have on consumerism, a lot of it is like, okay, well, we do need to make these like shifts, but how can we do them while still like really being joyful? And there is like a way to do that. Or like in the curiosity chapter, I did talk a little bit about like travel and why like I still like choose to do it and why like other people that I spoke to for the book still do it and kind of the benefits we see for kids, but also like how we try to do it as mindfully as possible.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if planes would do like, I know the fuel is a big one, but, you know, recyclable or, I have a guest coming up in a few weeks who talks to companies that are like making big changes in the sustainability world. Um, the first episode of his podcast that I listened to was this guy, his business is called R, like the letter R World. And
Okay.
he is encouraging and helping businesses or like, concert venues and stadiums and stuff like that reusing dishes. Like
Okay.
instead of the plastic beer cups
Plastic,
or
yeah.
whatever, like they're literally reusable. And I think that I think the percentage of returned reusables is like 93% or
Oh,
97%.
wow.
Like that's incredible.
Yeah.
To like that's like it's almost no waste.
Right. And that's such a cool thing for like places to do because I think when somebody sees it on a big scale, that you think, oh, like I'm
I,
having a like backyard children's party instead of just like buying these plastic plates and forks and whatever. Maybe I can just use some of my regular dishes. Or if you're concerned about them breaking, you can get
right.
some from a buy now or like a local. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I just thought that was incredible. I mean, that's like thousands of people.
Yeah.
That's it. That's really large
That's
scale, and that's
it's really
so
cool.
cool. But I think that we all, all of us together in our own way, just to do something, and we don't have to do, zero waste is nearly impossible, if not impossible, but all making efforts and just really being mindful of what we're doing is so important. And I think it's such an important lesson for kids to not have to take on all the pressure and all the weight of everything, um but every little bit adds up and helps. We can all be part of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So Bridget, how can people find your book? I know you said it's in your zero waste shop.
Yeah. So it's also like it's widely available both here in the US and overseas in the UK. And you can find it, at Barnes and Noble, at Amazon. It's at a lot of independent bookshops if you go to bookshop.org. So I have a website. It's Bree, Bree Shirvell, Shirvell.com. And it'll have the links for the book. It also has my newsletter that people can subscribe to.
Oh, cool. And get regular ideas and tips.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Very good. And all those links will be in the show notes, you guys. So, Bridget, thank you so much for being here and sharing this. I'm so excited for the good that you're doing.
Thank you.
And
Thanks so much
what's
for
what's
having
next for
me.
you?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, this was a big this was a big project. Now I'm just kind of like taking a moment, enjoying it. I also just have so many like writing ideas for my newsletter that I send out kind of every other week. So focusing on that.
Sweet. Awesome. So thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad we got to connect and you can share this and people with kids, check out the book. People without kids, check out the book. Why not?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
You.